Good morning, everyone. So, thanks for coming to like in this early morning of what's going to be a pretty busy blockchain week for a panel about like AI and crypto. AI is pretty hot today. Crypto became more and more hot recently, obviously, because it's following cycles. AI is also following cycles, and for once, the two cycles are colliding. We have like the cycle of AI hyping and the cycle of crypto hyping, and now people are looking for what could be the intersection of both things. So we have like a few panelists here that I will let introduce themselves that will that are all like in their different ways trying to like connect AI and crypto together, or at least like look at the space and will provide us with a view of how ready is it? Like, is it actually something to look for? And if so, how? Like, that's what we're going to try to figure out during this little conversation. Of course, we're not expecting to crack the nut of what could become a $1 trillion market like in 40 minutes, but at least have some form of direction where the space could go, because we have pretty knowledgeable people out here. So, please.
Hello? Is it on? Okay. Yeah. Thanks for having me here. Nice to see everybody here. So I'm Jeremy. I'm one of the co-founders in ISO Network. I'm actually really proud to be here because Sharding Capital is on our cap table. He invested in our first round. So we're basically working on the largest scale and the fastest verifiable AI solution in the entire space. So we're basically providing verifiable AI abilities for different kinds of usages on-chain, off-chain, Web2, and Web3 in the large scale ever. So besides some other technical solutions, for example, ZKML, OPML, we're providing a hybrid of MPC and TEE for the better usage of verifiable AI. So now we can directly support trustless verifiable execution of large models, similar to Llama 2 level over 7 billion parameters directly right now with a very little overhead. So in general, we basically provide AI to be usable, to be verifiable directly on-chain. And we're basically providing the hybrid, the integration of AI to be usable directly on-chain, because fundamentally the problem that we're dealing out with here in terms of the intersection of crypto and AI is that AI and blockchain, they're entirely two different kinds of technology, right? So if you want to make them usable for both ends, you have to eliminate the barrier between these two technologies. By the means, it basically try to make AI verifiable and trustless. So yeah.
Thanks.
Hi, so I'm Roshan, and I'm a researcher at Marlin, and we essentially provide like co-processors for the Web3 space. We provide like two flavors, like TE and ZK-based co-processors that essentially aim to provide verifiable compute for the blockchain space. And one of the use cases that is at the forefront right now for us is obviously AI. We have a whole bunch of like LLMs and like other CNNs, DNNs, all sorts of models running at our network currently. And like the inferencing and training, like all happening in a verifiable manner currently. So yeah, that's where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Olivia. I'm from China, and then Singapore, and then Dubai. So before this, I was in Hong Kong, so it's quite a journey here. So I co-founded the Neuroblock. It's AI plus Web3. So we are the infrastructure level to help the AI models to be on the blockchain ecosystem.
Hi.
Thanks.
So my name is Quentin. I'm the managing director and partner of Headquartered Capital. So we're a proprietary capital investment fund with operations in Switzerland, here in Dubai, and in New York. And basically, we've been investing in Web3 for a while now, from a whole spectrum of infrastructure layers and the usual. And we started our own venture into high-performance computing data centers. And now we're like one of the largely solely private operated AI supercomputer in the region. And actually, we're plugging in more than 300 servers by the end of this year, just in the UAE for this applications.
Thanks. All right. So again, like as you can see, we have like people building like on different layers of this, and I guess we can start the conversation with something like that. I mean, we can directly go into the meat of this. Like, is AI and crypto like a solution looking for a problem? I mean, yeah, you have multiple panelists here, like building validate, like something about like validating inference, essentially, right? Then we have people who own a data center, like more like in I would say the traditional side of AI. And I mean, the first question I would ask here is, how strong do you see the demand for like essentially like what you're building right now, like trying to go further than ZKML and all that, like trying to verify blockchain? You mentioned that it was about like verifying compute and verifying that like people are actually using a certain model and all that. Can you like elaborate, like because I'm not necessarily like singling you out, more like trying to see, is this branch, like what's the demand for this whole branch, not necessarily the company, what would be the demand for this?
Should I go first? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, apparently this is a really good question because I mean in the space, people are talking about, crypto AI or maybe trustless AI, verifiable AI all the time, right? And I think the reason why that people keep talking about this, and this is why we have this such a narrative, in this summit, it's mostly because, this is a really exciting area. But if you really ask the question of what's the point of making AI verifiable, the point for this like verifiable AI or on-chain AI, whatever you call it, is because, the biggest problem that we have seen so far in the space is that, blockchain are just too stupid, right? I mean, smart contract, they're never smart. Blockchain users can do really few things on top of blockchain. So especially with the AI development in Web2 has accelerated for a really long time in the past few years, it's very natural for people to think about how do you actually bridge AI abilities for on-chain usage, right? Basically letting AI to be usable for, smart contracts and users so that it can be more smarter and more intelligent. So this is like the prerequisite. This is like the prior question that we have to deal with. And the next question will comes in very naturally, which is how do you actually make that happen? Because it's not an easy task because I mean AI is entirely generated, trained, generated, executed in a completely non-verifiable way, right? I mean, it's basically a black box monster, and it has super power that can potentially destroy everything on blockchain. So if you want to use AI on chain, the very fundamental point, or say the technical bottleneck here is how do you actually make AI to be presentable, right? To be available and verifiable for on-chain usage. So this is something that we're working on, and I think this is also something Martin has been working on, which is we try to provide AI this originally black box and untransparent monster power to be adaptable, to be consistent with blockchain environment so that smart contracts users, or maybe users in Web2 who need that verifiability for AI, they can get that kind of verifiability directly from our solution and Martin's solution. So this is something that we're working on, and that basically answered the question for the demand side, because even till now, I mean, even with all the infrastructures, the layer 2s, layer 3, even, or maybe some new layer 1 blockchains, they're all trying to solve like computation limits for blockchain, right? They're trying to increase the throughput and all that. But still, like this progression is still pretty slow. So if we can somehow make all of the such a powerful AI, machines in Web2 can basically be used in on-chain environment, that's going to be super helpful, right? This is going to be another story. It's going to be mind-blowing. So I think from that side, the demand is really about we are opening a new way for people to interact with blockchain in an entirely intelligent way and change the fundamental lack of computation power that blockchain originally has, right? So this is some sort of like a really big gap that we're trying to close up, and you can pretty much think of this as a much more severe problem version of Oracle problem, right? So before Oracle comes in, there's no way that you can use any external data for blockchain usage, right? Chainlink and some other projects are working on that, but AI is pretty much similar. But the problem, let's say the difference here is that AI is much more bigger monster than pricing data, right? Off-chain pricing data. So you find a adaptable and suitable way to use AI on-chain is like a really, really important thing before you can bring massive adoption for on-chain intelligence.
I mean, I would just like answer, just to continue on this exact topic. The nature of smart contract interaction, and essentially like, like most of the smart contract that we have seen so far is like everything is rather deterministic, right? Like you do something no matter how many times you do it, if you the same inputs will result to the same output. AI is not. And do you think that the industry is ready for non-deterministic data? Like because essentially trying to close this gap, the way you represent it would mean that essentially the players would be willing to essentially sacrifice their whole programming model to accommodate something that would be different. Do you believe that the industry is ready for it, or are you seeing more of a building a block so people can start to think differently and build something else?
Yeah, I think the fundamental problem about AI being non-deterministic, I think somehow, I mean, in order to solve that, it really take a long time to from the beginning. Say you have to train the model in a really transparent way. You have to do verifiable training and verifiable fine tuning and all the way to execution part. So this is like really long efforts that we have to put in. But I think what so far we can do right now is that for a lot of the open source models and also for example large models that we're often used right now. If the execution of that model can be provided to be transparent, can be verifiable, somehow the non-deterministic issue of those models can be somehow solved because you basically ensure that the model, when the execution of the model is basically presentable, is presentable to be verifiable, so that in that angle, the non-deterministic nature of AI can be somehow worked around by having that proof, whether it's through ZK or OP or some other methods, for having that proof to be presentable on chain, so that the AI, the fundamental results of that AI can be deterministic on chain. So the non-deterministic part is still off chain, but the way that we work around that for basically all the projects working in this direction, the way that we work around that is that we have the computation happening off chain, but we somehow upload that proof of that computation for on chain usage. And this logic is pretty similar to Layer 2 rollup. What they're rolling up is like the blockchain transactional data, and we are rolling up like the AI execution part. So I think somehow that can work out. And,
you have a point.
Yeah. I mean, it's sorry, I was interesting, but I mean, conceptually on an academia level, it's very interesting. The thing is, both are not even comparable. Like I see, like the temporality of on-chain and like from AI is like it's absolutely impossible, right? I mean, Web3 has failed in decentralized storage. It has failed in like a lot of these scaling enterprises, and here we're talking about thousands of terabytes of data. I think you were saying, like, to be honest, a lot of this stuff, like, you go on Hugging Face and all these stuff, like a lot of LLMs are open sourced already. Actually, AI is a race to open source. I think Meta made it very clear that they're on a mission to kill anybody else, and they would put their models. Of course, you need to train it. But if you train it, I mean, that's your computing problem, and I guess that's another use case. But right now, I'm seeing from the actual customers or projects who use AI models, the problem they have right now is to training optimization tools. And that's kind of like where the main of the focus is, not really in a temporality of like, did I use AI or not in my query? Because again, I guess that's more of a company issue, right? If my query if I ask for the best recipe for pancakes, if it used AI or if it comes from SQL kind of like data sets, doesn't really bother me, right? I just want that. So I'm trying to understand here what kind of pain are we solving outside of the academia concept. Again, I'm talking more for like the legacy. I mean, I see the complexities of these operations that we're operating right now, and like, do we really need on-chain for that?
All right. So I guess this sort of touches upon the whole idea of like there sort of being like a hype cycle in terms of like AI and crypto and all that stuff, right? So it's partly true in the sense that today, if you ask me what use would LLMs get in the crypto world, I probably wouldn't be able to give you like a very concrete answer, right? So, but a lot of the more traditional forms of like machine learning and AI are like already in use in crypto today. So I just did KYC yesterday for like an airdrop, which was like fully, my ID was just fully processed by AI, which like using image recognition and all that. And that's like a very real use case of like AI in the crypto world today, right? It already exists.
I fully understand that, but that's like to temper data or process, or computing process, like as you said, as a KYC, as a beacon of an operation, fair enough. It's a nice gimmick, right? Yeah. But to temper, like, let's say inference model or like data, causality between different data sets that an LLM is supposed to compute, that's a different beast, right?
Yeah, that's true. LLMs are also kind of on the cutting edge, even in, I guess, the traditional Web2 space in terms of where we actually want to use them and stuff. I mean, ChatGPT is useful and all of that, but we're still figuring out like ways of actually integrating that into like more traditional existing processes even in the Web2 world, right? So yeah, I guess in that sense, LLMs are a lot more on the cutting edge in terms of like figuring out what they are capable of, where we want to apply, especially the non-determinism, as you mentioned. Like LLMs are fundamentally non-deterministic. Like ChatGPT has a parameter called temperature, which is literally just randomness, right? So,
even with that.
like, and there's actually a saying, and I think it comes from physics. It goes something like, no model is perfect, but some are useful, right? I guess the core of the saying is that you won't really have like a perfect, transparent model that's like fully deterministic at all times, but that doesn't mean
But
that
that's not the goal.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
the
doesn't
goal
mean
of
it's
AI
not
is not to
practically
be
useful,
deterministic.
right?
Like, yeah, goal is. I mean, if it's a probabilistic thing by nature, it's not. It's a non-goal to be deterministic. If we're just dealing with a chain of probabilities, right? Sorry, you are trying to.
Yeah, just back to that question. That I think this is a very good point. I would say that there are two main problems right here. Is that the first thing is we are not very sure. The data is like lack of transparency in terms of the data model, what data they're training on. The second part will be the cost. It's really expensive for closed AI to train on the GPUs and all these things that may not be really user-friendly for AI developers, like individual developers or their models that, for example, they're training on, they publish their model in the Hugging Face and all these things, but they may not have that kind of product market fit or users using their models as well, because there were like only the big foundation models that was publicly using by everybody, and that is verified the cost on chain as well in terms of Web3 is that it's actually because of the traffic that you can verify the model is actually making money for the people in the ecosystem. So the model is more sustainable in that way. But this is on this timeline. For example, if this model is a smaller model but solving niche market problems, it may not have a very fair chance to stay on chain. And therefore, it's not a very fair and open system for the AI Web3 ecosystem. So there are two things we want to solve here. The first thing is that how can we giving the AI builders the access to go to the market quickly in Web3 to enjoy the community services, enjoy the traffic, enjoy the benefit of all the users' feedback, and then increase their models' visibility in the public and the community. The second thing is that how can we reduce the cost to reduce the entry barrier for the individual contributors to join this ecosystem and enjoy all these benefits, and then not only controlled by this information, not only controlled by the major like the Meta and all these big companies, but everyone can contribute a part of it.
So, I mean, sorry, because I just noticed that you two seems to be quite at odds, right? Like, essentially, what you're describing as the problem and the potential solution, that's how to distribute models more and all that, as like to allow like model developers to get paid when their models get used and all that through a platform, is somewhat at odds with what Quentin was just mentioning, that models are essentially a race to open source. So what do you guys think is going on there?
So just to bounce, today they already like some inference platforms, right, that are not Web3 based, and they have amazing growth, and it's absolutely amazing, right? I mean, these guys actually reach out to us borderline on a daily basis to ask for more computing capacity, and nobody asked them to do Web3. It's like, adding extra weight on your shoulders. They literally don't need it. They said, honestly, right now people are ready to pay for an hour, 2 hours of GPU power. And this is ultimately what I call, gravity. It's like, I don't see, these chips are still very expensive. Even if you have the money, you probably won't have access to this. I mean, I have portfolios who raised hundreds of millions of dollars, and they struggle to have access to this.
Exactly.
And even having access to it, let's say we all have access to it, and we all have it in our garage. I'm smiling because he has some. The problem is the networking, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody talks about the GPUs, but the networking is maybe more important. So just for a lot of people don't know, but we're talking about like to distribute a task within a server. The connections is 400 gigabytes per second connection between GPUs. I'm not even going to go how far Web3 is because I think that's going to be laughable. But it's really, I mean, the debate in AI right now in connections and like latency, which is latency game, it's like, you know, space travel. And Web3 is more like, you know, the White brothers, like starting to building an airplane that goes around 60 meters. That's kind of like how big the gap is. So that's why I'm like, I love these platforms, and you're right, for entry barriers for all of these developers and like startups. I mean, I know Y Combinator has its own servers now, so it makes sense. There's a trend. Actually, for us, we started this project to help our portfolios. So that's where I come from, so it makes sense. But to make it distributed per se, I mean, on a purely, you know, computer science, we have bigger problems to solve, I think, in blockchain right now, for sure.
I mean, the costs of training increase exponentially with the latency between the GPUs and the servers. So, I mean, you're pretty much going nowhere if you try to distribute that on that level. From inference, luckily you can distribute more. This is where I was going to ask, like, I mean, we kind of made it evidently clear that we can't really leverage Web3 levels of distribution for training. But like, do you see like maybe inference could be a case, or because what you seem to be describing would be closer to developers using inference models and all that? What are you looking at?
Yeah, definitely. That's coming back to the, sorry, keep on backing to the previous question. Coming back to the second question, and he also mentioned before, is the verification part. So we all know about the WorldCoin that is on the end user verification, so that everyone know themselves, the real person in the world, and then, you know, in the Web3. So, and we also know like IO.net, which is another based on your usage as the GPU, how much you use, we charge you based on how much you use, right? Pay-per-use, typical Web2 model. But there is one very typical point that is missing here is the model verification process. And that is really, really important because once the AI models being on the chain, it is really important for us to understand where they're using the data, how they're using the model to train, for what kind of purpose. And this is a making in this ecosystem, and this is very important for us to making sure the regulation is in the first place, and this ecosystem is more sustainable for everyone to be fairly joining into this game.
So, do you believe that the lack of a model verification system is currently slowing down AI?
Yes, so individually verification is very easy. So I get your DNA, I get whatever that is important for you, but using machine to actually verify in big scales to understand where those model is using, we need to have a systematic approach and process using AI to help that. So that could be one point that AI should be implemented, using AI for AI to verify AI models.
That sounds again like as academically exciting as complex. I mean, the research on AI is booming, right? We see I'm reading like 4 or 5 papers every week coming from researchers, and as I can see, like verifiability of models of watermarking are still like pretty much in their infancy. I'm not sure we really reached a proper conclusion for that. I've seen that in your project you're leveraging like fully homomorphic encryption for AI. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you guys intend to do?
Yes. Yeah, we are trying to do many things, to be honest, at this stage. And we keep on trying to add more things, because the more we're digging into the problem, we understand that it's far complicated than what we think initially it is. So it is very hard to use in one sentence to describe this, but I would say that there are main 4 pillars we are looking at. The first pillar is how we can help the AI models to be very low cost enter into this ecosystem. And second part is that how we can help them to find the product market fit, and creating a marketplace for all the AI models, as many as possible, and to increase the diversity to see like in different industries, in different use cases, for all the developers to have the space and to using our ecosystem to grow their project on chain. And in this in this problem is typically related to the cost and why those bigger models have the reason to stay on chain and everyone is using them. For example, Ratio.Night, that is, they have like 10, 20 models over there. But why they don't put 200 models? Because the cost is really high. And therefore, we are trying to see how do we optimize the GPUs and adding the fine-tuned models into it together with some foundation models to save the cost, to make this more accessible to everybody and more projects to be in our ecosystem.
So can you elaborate?
That's a bit more of a virtualization problem, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
It's more virtualized in person within the GPU.
Yes.
So I guess it's like, sorry, again, that's a bit of my world because that's kind of like the nightmare I need to deal with every day with NVIDIA licensing. Because even if you have these chips, right, I mean, you need the licensing to be able to increase the virtualization within a GPU, which ultimately diminish the cost because you can achieve more with the same chip.
Yes.
So then in this case, the bottleneck is centralized. So like it's not like we can go over what NVIDIA is offering us.
You can do decentralized computing without Web3. Like a lot of people think like, if I want to have decentralized computing, I need blockchain. Actually, no, you really don't. Distributed computing has been, put together like in the 70s, right? Like to make sure that two computers don't do the same task, but they work together. I think these are like, it's really like the godfathers of computing. But just to look back on like inference, I'm super bullish, by the way, for blockchain inference-based solutions, because it's super easy. Most models are very easy to do inference, right? You can have 2 GPUs in your garage and have a very bad internet connection because it's a last mile game. So you want the end user who have like, I don't know, his NPC game or his Apple Vision Pro, whatever he's doing, to be like your neighbor, and you provide that inference. And that makes total sense. I'm a big bullish on that, 100%. I'm just saying for most of the applications that are a bit more sophisticated, I think
So I was getting back to what you mentioned, like essentially you're going towards cost savings, right? Like how would you optimize on the savings? Because like as we're looking at, you have GPUs. We can't really save on getting more GPUs. We have like like the supply of GPUs is not gonna like increase. So like which part of the chain are you working on to increase? To enable savings?
Yeah, the first thing I would say that we are using, of course, we are fine-tuning our own models. So that the first part we'll be seeing like how we're using a tier system to understand which are the prioritized and what is the second tier that we use in the Web2 work called scale to zero. Basically, if this model is not being used, it will be in the sleeping mode. So we are not going to activate it unless the user needs that model to be for specific purpose to save that processing power. The second part, of course, is external. We're trying to get, if you have a free GPU at your garage, you can plug it into our system, and then we will using incentivized tokens to have to grow this ecosystem.
All right, so essentially, like we've been looking at multiple types of model, multiple ways we can look into like AI and crypto, trying to save, save on cost or enable. I guess it's interesting that like every project here is trying to enable in some way verifiable computing, and interestingly, we see a kind of a disconnect between like an investor on the other side that would not really see much demand for the verifiable side because they receive demand that is coming from the other side. But like you guys are all building into this, which is leading me to either like highlight the disconnect between what people are building and what people are wanting. Well, just like it's a potential. I'm not saying that you guys are building something that people are not wanting, just like showing that there could be a rift, which is why we're doing this panel. Or like maybe, there's an actual like a big gap to close, which is why like we're here. So it begs the question, like, let's say, what do you guys think like the typical application of AI and crypto will be, not now, but 5 years from now? If I'm going out around the table, like what would you start with?
Yeah, so I think all of the guys here definitely make a really good point about the necessity or maybe the demand for doing such a thing, and I totally agree with that. Inference is definitely the last milestone, the last mile for like the closing the loop for verifiable AI,
And I think so still, like, you know, when we're talking about, say, intersection of crypto and AI, whether it's about infrastructure or application, it's definitely early stage, right? We haven't seen a single killer application.
Mature infrastructure that can basically do things there. And I mean, the projects that we're all talking about here, they are all somehow early stage, haven't even got their testing out. So I think what we're trying to build here is actually, fundamentally, it's probably not only about Web3, right? So as we mentioned that, you know, for Web3 people, some of them have the need, have the demand. Some of them probably have not. I mean, if you're simply using AI for analyzing some blockchain data, predicting data price, predicting, you know, token price, stuff like that, you don't need the model to be verifiable, right? I mean, you just use it, right? You don't have to make it verifiable and trustless. But some definitely some use cases, for example, letting AI to manipulate your wallets, right? Or somehow you just let the so something similar to what AVAX Avalanche has been building. It's called COA, Coin Operator Agent, basically letting blockchain users to directly interact with LLM, and LLM interact with the blockchain. So for that kind of scenario, we have to make sure that the LLM in the middle is trustless and verifiable. So I still think that there's huge demand there, but just people somehow, because of the lack of limitation that we have so far in the space right now, there's still a really big gap or you know, imagination that we have to open up there. And yeah, so just standing at this you know, standpoint, I think just in 5 years, what we can envision from our perspective is that, because we are very simple, we're only solving one specific very problem here, which is we try to make inference to be verifiable at the fastest way, and for different usage, for Web2, Web3, whatever you name it. So I think standing from our point, we do think that we have to embrace in a 5-year scope, you know, embrace a much more transparent and also private, while you know, verifiable, you know, future for using AI in any specific you know, scenario. For example, like forget about Web3. I mean, just in Web2, if you're paying for a specific kind of model, how do you actually know that the results is given from that specific model, right? I mean, the model provider can just cheat, or if you're asking for like Stable Diffusion, you can probably just have a painter in the back end just paint that photo for you, right? You can't. Do
you care?
Sorry?
Do you care?
Because I'm paying for that specific model. Right?
Yeah, no, but let's say like I want a service, the service is provided. How it's provided, it's not really my problem, is it?
Well, if you're using blockchain transactional data, if the blockchain data gives you like the specific result, would you actually care that your ledger is on the blockchain? Right, the same problem. I mean, the whole problem about Web3 is to deal with the, you know, integrity and verifiability. And if you try to put that on chain, it's something that you have to think about. You know,
I think the disconnect between you two here, like again, as my role of moderator is to highlight that, is that Quentin seems to be coming from more of a goal-oriented approach. Like when you query a model, you might actually be caring about like the accuracy of the answer, more about like how did something come with the answer. Whereas like where you're coming from is more of a blockchain perspective, where we come from an environment where we can trust everything because we don't have to trust, we can read because it's blockchain. And you're trying to bring the guarantee that we find in typical blockchain programming onto AI consumption, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, I tend to view a good chunk of the Web3 space as essentially Web2 with better foundations, right? So when you look at it from that perspective, a lot of use cases of like AI you find in the Web2 space literally just translate over one-to-one. So for example, something like credit scoring, a lot of like financial models that can hopefully be like applied to make DeFi a lot better than it is today. Hopefully like under collateralized lending and stuff like that. Like, you know, recommendation models for like social media like Lens and stuff around that, right? So apart from that, I guess sort of looking towards the future, like let's say, what do I want to see in like 5 to 10 years? I would hopefully like to see AI applications that make use of Web3 natively. Like a big reason why Web3 is successful today is this concept of like programmable value, right? That's something that we have that's unique to our space that doesn't really exist in the Web2 space, right? So, you know, this whole concept of like autonomous agents and like AI entities that basically get to control value and can like exist in like the blockchain space as smart contracts or as things that are actually interacting with humans in almost like an independent manner. That's something that I would like to see come out of the Web3 space in, let's say, 5 to 10 years.
Great, very interesting, thank you.
I think the future of the AI is at the crossroads that we can choosing a closed AI path that all these big companies that control the information, the AI proprietaries, or we can choosing a very open AI path that all these AI models was governed by the users itself, by the people that empower this ecosystem together. So we are trying to see, if you're asking me in 5 years, I definitely want to see a more open ecosystem that everyone is free to participate and is feel empowered, those developers and AI builders to build like not thousands or 10,000s of use cases in the Hugging Face. We want to see like millions of AI models that coming out from there. Yeah, but in Web3 as well. Yeah.
So I have two opinions. One, which
Please
is
go on.
One's a bit bleak. I mean, when you take Ethereum, which is like the #1 application layer in Web3, right? 70% or something like that is ran on AWS. So this is already a testimony of the failure of an industry to do decentralized computing to start with simple stuff. And storage is the same, right? It's just pathetic. You cannot really scale. So that's why I'm very bearish on the computing side. That being said, I think WED is an incredible layer, and actually some of my analysts on my fund are literally actively looking on the market on this, because we think this is the #1, is really just look how many lawsuits has OpenAI right now for IP infringement. And that's absolutely, I think, the future. It's like, how can, who's going to own what from which IP? And this is where Web3 can find, finally, a killer app, which is traceability of IP and data. That 100% makes sense, because if, let's say, 2 years from now, I'm talking to ChatGPT like, oh, put a Harry Potter movie and I want to be there with my mom, I'm still going to use the whole world of Harry Potter. So that's IP, right? If Warner did this, they would own a lot of money to a lot of people. And this Web3 starts to make sense, because then we can tamper on the blockchain data sets on which the LLM or the inference is being done. That makes 100% sense. But all the distributed computing, distributed storage, inference to a certain degree, honestly, it's just people who've never actually dealt in AI companies who can feel what is the pain of the market, because we see just data sets getting like exponential, right? Just between ChatGPT 3.5 and 4, it's like 100x more complex. And it's just, we're talking about the function. It's like it's a Socratic function of itself, which means every 6 months we make the problem way more complicated. And whereas with blockchain, it's still like, oh, we might solve distributed computing. Yeah.
So I mean, this naturally brings me to like one of the reasons why the whole space exists. Like you were mentioning that a lot of the space is AWS. If you take out Bitcoin mining, of course, I mean, which is like therefore it can't be there. But it's a lot of the space. I would say like a lot of the space in crypto is really like token focused. Like it's all about like tokens. People like buy into projects so they can hope their tokens go up and everything. Like, do you see any like different token model and all that would arrive with this new wave of AI crypto companies? I guess that's going to be the last question, because you guys already had room to describe projects. So I'm going to skip towards like more of a market overview. Like you guys expressed where you would see the space in 5 years. Do you still see that like this AI and blockchain type of thing is compatible with what people use crypto the most for, which is essentially like hoping for tokens to go up? Do you see newer token models that would be more interesting? Like anything else?
Well, I think you can go first. You got it. Yeah.
Sure. So, nothing really that interesting, but I think it comes down to like how protocol designers actually view the protocol, right? So, let's forget about like subsidies and airdrops and tokens for a minute. At the end of the day, what you want your protocol to look like is basically users paying for, I guess, these suppliers, more or less, right? So, given that, like from the perspective of like a protocol designer, it's honestly really just easy to replace users with some inflation or like essentially token subsidies, right? You just it's essentially the same money flow. You are just getting it from some other pot compared to the user, right? The main issue in like trying to go for alternate models is like, for example, let's say you want to sort of subsidize the user, right? At some point, your protocol basically has to make a switch where the users are actually now paying into the protocol instead of getting paid out, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, from the perspective of protocol design, it's way cheaper to, way simpler to just like move money around from different pots rather than like trying to engineer a switch in between, let's say after 5 years or 10 years or whatever, right? Yeah.
Okay, we have a minute left. Anybody with anything specific to add?
I think giving computing as an AI is going to be a commodity. Then if you take token as a payment vehicle, then it starts to make sense as a payment vehicle, right? But I guess Bitcoin can do this very well. But if you want to do like access, let's say that you would temper your computing credits and make it on an open market, that would be more fair actually for people.
Well, the thing is that if the token is used for access, then you have like a linear growth of the price at best, and people are expecting exponential growth of prices. So it won't, it won't stick to whatever the market is looking for. But yeah, you are one last bite.
Very short, just one word. It's auction, because we think that in order for the system to be more fair, like users can actually auction the popular product they want to be getting more attention to, or the token can be used in different ways to, maybe you can thinking about the gaming, the top 3 players, those kind of scoring board, that kind of encouragement method that we are using some kind of gaming element into it as well.
Thank you very much, and well, you can check all the panelists, like Olivia, Jeremy, Roshan, and Quentin on their different websites. I'm not even sure you guys have a website, but do you?
I think the fund has a website.
But yeah, well, thank you very much for everybody to listen to this conversation. The space of AI in crypto is necessarily complex and is bound to grow in complexity. So we try to essentially highlight different routes that different players are taking. I hope this was highly informative. At least it was for me. So thank you very much, and a round of applause for the panelists.
Thank you.